Greetings, Moralis Money Pro community, and welcome to another Roadmap Roundtable. I'm Phil, head of research at Moralis, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching it a week later, unless you're part of the Moralis Money Pro community. Click the link below if you want to check it out and see what we're all about. Let's get started with our guest today. Today, I'm here with Aaron, head of foundation operations for Moonbeam. So we're going to hear all about Moonbeam's roadmap for this year, some of the things they've done so far, and have an opportunity to ask them questions. So if you've got any questions in the chat, go ahead and chime in, and I'll make sure that your question gets answered. Aaron, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Thanks for being here with us. We're really excited to talk about Moonbeam. Now, the group that we're presenting to today is really into DeFi and explores a lot of different networks all the time. In fact, we're very familiar with Polkadot ecosystem and where Moonbeam fits with respect to it. But I want to give you a chance to explain all of that for the sake of anybody who's watching it later on, because they may not have as much knowledge on DeFi in general.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's many in your community will know that Moonbeam is an EVM compatible layer one blockchain deployed in Polkadot as a parachain. And we're advancing integrated Web3 by supporting free thinking builders with the vital tools that they need to kind of realize whatever they can dream up. The way we achieve this is by offering the ease of the EVM development plus additional features that we build directly into the protocol, as well as which we build on top of the substrate, on top of substrate and the Polkadot SDK. And so, yeah, and we have a vibrant, DeFi community, but also we're making a lot of inroads in terms of gaming, RWA, some DPIN stuff, and so forth. So, yeah, that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Now, there's one thing that we didn't talk about before we started the stream, but I don't think it'll be a curveball in any way. I noticed the important role that you guys play in connecting Manta Atlantic to Manta Pacific through the bridge pathway there. I guess I just wanted to point that out for anybody who wasn't aware. That is very interesting since there's been so much happening over there recently. Was that something they did through cooperation with you guys, or was that just a convenient method for them?
Actually, it was pretty cool. They just did it without, I'm pretty sure not without much consultation from us. So what they're leveraging is something that we like to call Moonbeam routed liquidity. And so what we found is because, we're the EVM of Polkadot, we're kind of the gateway or the entrance to Polkadot for a lot of the outside ecosystems. And also, if you're going in the other direction as well. And so what we found is a lot of the other parachains in Polkadot who are looking to get liquidity from other ecosystems such as Ethereum or Polygon, they can route it through Moonbeam, where Moonbeam is like the conduit to all of this. And it can be done, once if you develop the dApp correctly, it can be done with very few clicks. So basically, on one leg between, say, Ethereum and Moonbeam will be a GMP protocol such as Wormhole, and then it uses something called XCM to communicate between Moonbeam and the other parachain. And this is all done, and it's just routes through Moonbeam. And I think Manta chose to do this for convenience, and they were able to do it. They, of course, had to go through our governance to set up the channel between Moonbeam and Manta, but then from there, they could do everything else themselves.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for explaining that. And that's interesting to hear. I wasn't really sure whether or not that was a collaborative completely, but it sounds like it was more utilizing the solution that you guys provide, which is excellent because that provides us some context for the network we're about to talk about here, guys. So tell me, in terms of this year, 2024, what so far have you guys brought to the table in terms of upgrades or improvements or really anything you want to share with our community here?
Sure. Yeah. So we've been doing a number of things. I think building on a lot of what we built last year around XCM and governance and these types of things. And MRL or Moonbeam routed liquidity is one of those things we've continued. We built that out last year, continuing to improve it, make it easier to use, expanding our SDK, and we're actually adding a feature directly into the Moonbeam dApp where people can use Moonbeam routed liquidity to move assets in and out of the Polkadot ecosystem via Moonbeam. So that's one aspect. But the other, really the big thing that we've been focused on is something called on the Polkadot side called asynchronous backing. Not a very sexy name, but the developers came up with this one clearly, right? But essentially, when you're finalizing blocks in the Polkadot network, there's sort of two phases to it. There's something called backing, which is validating the parachain blocks, and then there's the inclusion, which is actually including it into a Polkadot block. Those things were happening serially. Now Polkadot has brought the capability where there's some parallelization possible. And what this means is that we're going to be able to reduce our block time from 12 seconds to 6 seconds. In addition, it promises a lot. We'll be able to expand our block capacity. And so right now in our test net, we have this enabled, and we have achieved, essentially 8x throughput with this upgrade by reducing the block time and then increasing the block size capacity by 4 times. So that's been a huge part of our efforts up to now. And that will hit our Moon River, which is our incentivized test net, likely in June. And then probably in August, we'll see that on Moonbeam mainnet.
Perfect. Now, I also wanted to ask, in addition to these upgrades, and that's great, by the way, to hear that we're getting more throughput in less time, and definitely important when we're talking about new and emerging DeFi dApps that we all enjoy participating in. The more of us try to use them, then all of a sudden we need more performant networks, and that's exactly what these types of upgrades are addressing. Now, what about things that are coming still this year? What else can we anticipate, specifically as DeFi users, but also as developers, for those of us developers who are listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a number of different things we're working on. I think some of our focus, what we found in serving the these use cases, such as especially gaming, but also in RWA and DeFi and so forth, is that everyone always complains about the UX, and we don't, as people are kind of trying to stick to just Ethereum compatible things, there's not a lot, I think, being done or not being done quickly enough to ease the user experience, make it better. So we're doing a lot of things in that regard. We're making sure we have account abstraction, compatibility, that you've probably heard a lot about. We're also expanding our SDKs and support to make it easier for developers to build applications which are more user-friendly. But also, we are planning on a investment in some ZK technology. And there's going to be more announcements about this in the coming weeks. But we are past the sort of ideation phase. We're now really deep into the scoping and research, beyond research phase and into the planning here. And I think we believe that adding some ZK tech directly into natively into the chain, that we can accelerate some of these UX improvements that maybe haven't come as quickly as we would have liked to have seen on, say, the Ethereum, where it's a lot harder to make certain changes. Because Moonbeam is built on Substrate, with governance, we can upgrade the chain without, in a forkless way. We do an upgrade, say, every 6 to 8 weeks. The chain is upgraded. Those always go very smoothly. It's done through governance, so it has community approval. So that means we're able to be nimble and move a little bit faster. So we're really excited about this investment that we're going to be making. And as I said, some of the specific use cases that we're looking to solve, we'll have more information on that in the coming weeks.
Perfect. Now, I know that Moon River is also a network that you guys are associated with due to the relationship there between chains which are deployed to the Kusama network as opposed to Polkadot. And I was just curious, since you were talking about upgrades, are those upgrades tested first on the Moon River network, or does it not really work that way? I'm just curious from my own perspective, since I use DeFi on both.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So that is what essentially we have our Moonbase Alpha testnet. So releases go there first, and then they're introduced to Moon River. and before finally being deployed on Moonbeam. Now they have to go through governance, so it is possible that the Moon River community could vote against a particular upgrade. That hasn't happened yet, but that is how things go. And I think a lot of people are a little bit perhaps confused about, well, you have Moonbase Alpha testnet and then you have Moon River. But the philosophy I think here is that, on Moon River, instead of just dev tokens, the tokens have real value. And so if you really want to test your chain, you want to test it against attack as well. And so if you're introducing an upgrade that is potentially, it could be attacked. I mean, yes, it would be very bad if that happened on Moon River, but the idea is to provide that incentivized test network where, it's under real economic conditions before it finally goes to Moonbeam.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And, it's part of why in the Moralis Money Pro community, we prefer testing in production dApps to using testnets. I mean, number one, if we earn any rewards, those rewards are real. Of course, the risks are real too at the same time. But it definitely, I think, as you were saying, provides for a more real world test. I've even heard, without mentioning any specific names, some dApp deployers use the phrase that they test in production. I don't know if you've heard that one before.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of Moon River, we are actually, there's a lot going on there. Excuse me. We are currently working with Axelar in their amplifier program and to bring their new architecture to Moon River to bridge, to all a pile of other ecosystems. And as part of that, there'll be we have some plans to build some liquidity there. That's sort of on top of like some of the other things that we have planned on Moonbeam.
I'm very excited to hear you say that because Axelar is also one of our partners and was previously a guest on this exact show, this Roadmap Roundtable show. And so can we hear maybe a little more info on that, whether it's about the specifics of the integration, or of course, we're interested in timeline as well. Would we see some of the plans there finalized or introduced on the mainnet by the end of this year?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I guess in terms of timeline, I think we're looking at sort of probably Q3 timeframe for that's the plan now. But essentially, this is Axelar's newer architecture. I think a big piece with their, I guess, legacy architecture was that they required kind of a chain upgrade every time they wanted to add a network. And this is to create a more where that's no longer required, and it can be done through their governance and so forth. And it also it just makes it easier for them to scale. And then also the sets of relayers and validators are sort of can address specific chains and specific communities. So yeah, we've been really excited to partner with those guys. We're in this pilot program, so we're among the first. We're in the first cohort to do that, and I think that's probably coming later this summer. And we're going to have a variety of grant programs and so forth to boost that as well and to build on top of that.
Now, am I correct in assuming that this would be, I mean, the footwork or the groundwork of really the first interoperability pathways between Cosmos ecosystem and Polkadot ecosystem? I mean, it could be there are others, but you really don't see it very much. Where you've got this Polkadot connected project working with a Cosmos connected project, without going too much into Cosmos right now, that does seem pretty unique. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly with Axelar, that's definitely going to be possible. There are parachains, but I think more on the Polkadot side that focus on connecting specific ecosystems into the Polkadot network. But I think just from an ease of use point of view, similar to kind of the MRL situation, right? I mean, that now you can, this would enable sort of an MRL capability on Moon River as well. And it's just, for a lot of people, it's just a lot easier to work through the EVM layer as the front door to that, right? So I kind of think about, if you go back to these sort of like old web architectures where you have layers at the very front, you have the web server layer, and I feel like Moonbeam's kind of the web server to Polkadot. That's that's how you get in and out kind of thing to the ecosystem. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's very exciting to see, these interoperability projects. Cause in a sense, and this is what we talked about in the very beginning, in a sense, Moonbeam also contributes to interoperability by allowing for that EVM compatibility that lets you bring in those EVM assets in many cases. And then Axelar, connecting all these different networks. And if you were over on our Moralis channel, you saw some of the things we were doing recently in demonstrations with Axelar technology, where we could take a token, mint it to multiple chains, and then actually manage not only the supply, but also the liquidity between all those chains using Axelar tools. And hearing that an ecosystem like Moonbeam will soon be a part of that is very, very exciting. Now, I wanted to share my screen here because I've got the Moonbeam docs pulled up for us. And I was just going through this a little bit before our stream and, thinking about different things I might want to ask on behalf of our community here. And one thing I saw was the grants program. And I understand that you guys are starting a new round of grants soon. And I'd love to hear more about that. Are these grants just for developers, or are there ways that non-developers could benefit from them too?
Yeah, I mean the grants are for project teams in that are deployed to Moonbeam or will be deploying to Moonbeam. So I would say we sort of segregate things, and maybe the grants team is calling it different things these days. But there's kind of our community grants, which tend to be more about building projects and deployment, typically maybe smaller projects. And then there's some ecosystem grants, which are usually larger and oftentimes relate to building liquidity or depth of liquidity in particular ways on Moonbeam. And we've done several rounds, typically a couple rounds per year of those ecosystem grants. And we are actually working with Gauntlet right now on ensuring that coming up with ways to kind of measure the impact of those grants, to ensure that we're maximizing the benefit for the Moonbeam community, that it's leading to a thriving ecosystem. So a lot of those would be, I think, of interest to your listeners, because I think some of those grants will most likely go to some of the DeFi venues on Moonbeam, such as Moonwell, which is our main lending and borrowing, and then some of the other dexes and so forth, Stella and BeamSwap and those types of things, those types of applications. So stay tuned for that. I mean, I think probably something going to be, I believe, announced within the next couple of weeks or months, or sorry, within the next month certainly, because we want to get those started very quickly. But we're super excited to be working with Gauntlet on this, and so that we can improve how we put these grants to work.
Perfect, perfect. And of course, as DeFi users, we're looking forward to checking out what emerges from new developments on Moonbeam and things like that. And we're going to be watching closely. Now, if you want to be part of that journey, exploring dApps not only on Moonbeam, but other networks as well, that's what the Moralis Money Pro community is about, along with a lot of other tools and help from community members, as well as myself and other members of the research team. Now, we're getting close to the end of our time here today. Aaron, I want to give you an opportunity to share with us any other thing that you're looking forward to down the line for Moonbeam, be it this year or even in the years to come. If there's some sort of long-term goals or visions you wanted to explain to us, we're excited to hear about it.
Yeah, so a couple other things I probably want to call out. So one, in terms of long-term, ensuring sort of the best possible outcome for the community and so forth, and sustainability of the network. We're also working with Gauntlet to revisit our tokenomics to see if maybe some adjustments want to be made there and so forth. And those, of course, they would have to pass community governance, and we'll likely, but probably make some changes there in the coming year. And then just in terms of fostering a more integrated Web3 ecosystem, we're going to be partnering with a few other key projects in the ecosystem. One of them is Tansy, which is an app chain infrastructure team. They're going to launch in August, I think, is what they're targeting. They've already got like 450 projects signed up or something like this, and they're also in the Polkadot ecosystem. And we really see a big synergy where things like MRL or pools of liquidity and so forth on Moonbeam can serve as infrastructure to those app chains so that they don't have to rebuild those things themselves. We also, some of these, integrations between other ecosystems and so forth, there's still a lot of friction there. And I think there's more that can be done to abstract that while also improving the reliability and the security of those things. So there's another project called Glacis that we're partnering with, and they're pioneering this abstraction layer over GMP protocols, so over Axelar and Wormhole and so forth, to give what I'd like to call Web 2 reliability to cross-chain transactions. So, there's retries, there's, failover, and making this all transparent so the dApp developers don't even really need to worry about which GMP protocol they're using. Yeah, I mean, I think those are probably the big things. I mean, we're also just, in terms of liquidity in the Polkadot ecosystem, extending our SDK to make that easier to bring in a lot of the native stable coins and make those flow a little more freely within the ecosystem. Yeah, I think those are probably the big ones. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, I noticed you mentioned Gauntlet a couple of times, and I was just pulling up the Gauntlet interface there. Now, how soon can we expect to see Moonbeam listed among the ecosystems supported by Gauntlet?
I don't know. That's a great question. I'll have to talk to our partners over there. I mean, we do have some things planned with them. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised maybe we're not there already. I'll have to talk to those guys.
Well, as soon as it shows up, let us know, because we'll definitely be checking it out as a community. It looks like exactly the type of tech that we're interested in, as is all DeFi, of course. Now, Aaron, I want to thank you for your time. It was great to meet with you, talk about the roadmap. I understand from our quick chat before the stream that you do have a roadmap graphic coming out soon. And so once that's available, we'll definitely make that available to our community so that we can maybe take a closer look there and possibly have you back on for another stream after we see some of these things come to fruition, and then we can talk a little bit more about the progress there if you're interested.
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely. Yeah, no, that'd be great.
All right, perfect. Well, also a very special thank you to all of you who tuned in or who are watching this later on. We would love to see you in the Moralis Money Pro Discord and discuss with you Moonbeam and DeFi on that network, as well as other networks. Until then, I'll see all of you in the next stream or video.